Alex Ansary here. It is April 2nd, 2018. Doing this video in the forest after a full moon. So the energy is not as heavy, maybe you've noticed. We're on the other side of the full moon. The energies are lighter. And this is one of the most clear days that I've seen in a while. I should pause here. So, there's videos on motivation. Motivation to be successful, motivation to live your dreams. And then there's getting a little bit more specific. You have the Nick Nimmons of the world, as well as YouTube channel, YouTube or video creators, where it's about motivation to make YouTube videos or to be successful on YouTube. And then you get a little bit more specific with motivation to make YouTube videos about the truth, but specifically your truth. And there really aren't people out there that provide that level of a motivational speak. And just a few thoughts on this. But to know what your own truth is, not plagiarizing somebody else, and even if you have the same perspectives as somebody else on the internet, coming to your own conclusions, writing your own content or speaking your own content. You'll notice that I don't read from a script, but I'm speaking my own content because I think about these subjects all the time. So what does it mean to develop motivation to continue to speak the truth in a day and age where it's controversial to speak the truth? You know, there's a study out there, about 10% of the population, was it 1% to 10%, is acting in a sociopathic manner. And it's funny because when you look at the actual ratio, I can actually see that ratio in the comments. You know, like 1 out of 10 comments might be on the sociopathic side of things. Maybe it might sometimes be a little bit more, like 1 in 100. And it doesn't necessarily have to be directed at the YouTube speaker for it to be sociopathic. You know, it could be just a sociopathic statement about how such and such group should be harmed because of such and such awareness or truth. And it's like you can actually like expose corruption and stuff without calling for someone to actually be hurt or something illegal to happen to them or that person in elected office. We just may find that it's our job to highlight certain acts of corruption. This reminds me of Costilla County. I wanted to document the officials there kicking someone off their land. And when I was talking to someone about, hey, we should go over there and see what's going on, they took a snapshot of our conversation and they put it in one of the articles about Costilla County. And they indicated that they perceive things like that to be a threat, simply just trying to document police activities. So you'll notice that in rural communities as well as urban communities. So one's motivation, like why are you doing this, right, needs to be rock solid. Because if it's strictly being done for money, then it's more of a discussion about motivation to make YouTube videos that fit into someone's expectations. For example, I can get a lot from the content from Nick Nimmon and people like them that'll talk about the thumbnails and the titles, and to a certain degree that's important. There's also a part of me that feels like a big demographic within their audience space. They seem to be gamers, which seems to be some of the more profitable. When you look at some of the more profitable, popular types of YouTube niches, they may tend to be in categories of things that I'm not very interested in, or I may not identify to be in that niche of truth and philosophy. But there are many that are in activism, and it's just important to understand that if it's truth that we're interested in, and our truth, then our idea of success cannot be measured by how many hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars we took home at the end of the month. You know, when I look at my take home on YouTube being about 200 to 220, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, especially this year. Seems no matter what it is that I do. Success for me is about living off the grid with the very basic things that I need. You know, I don't see what I do as being a brand that's heading towards a particular direction. You know, I'm not trying to finance $1 million home for a large family and a gorgeous wife. Not worried about any car payments or what the bill's going to be tonight at the dinner with the kids and the beautiful girlfriend or wife. You see, so for me, it's about being on the spiritual path. And so to be on the spiritual path and talk about videos or talk about things like I do, it's going to isolate a lot of people and attract certain sociopaths that often at times will disguise themselves just to pull up rank as supporters. And this has been a little bit more common in recent years than it was during the time that I've been in Portland. More common in my off-grid journey. There's a lot of ego that's been surrounding the whole thing about one guy going off-grid. Somebody else may think, fuck that dude. I want what he has. In fact, I'm going to have what he has. Fuck that dude. And so that's a big part of our hater society. Somebody may also go, well, that person should be enlightened by now. He's had 2 years to live in what? An area where people that actually live here will also complain about people revving up their engines, about garbage being thrown, about other things I'm not going to get into because those aren't my issues, but ways in which you can even be in a natural, beautiful landscape and still be dealing with the modern world. I'm in a natural landscape, but the people in this county are actually more programmed by Facebook because they're on it more throughout the day than people that live in metropolitan areas. Those metropolitan areas may not be attractive to me, how much it costs to live there, the pollution going on there, the smart meters that are there, the grid itself. I may prefer to be off-grid on a biological level. My chest, my body, my DNA, my blood, right, craves the trees and the natural sunlight and is repelled, right, by the things of the city. But there are people in the actual city that have their hearts 10 times more opened up to someone new or someone different with a different idea than here. So for me to speak the truth about either how I see Donald Trump, how I used to see Barack Obama as another puppet and how unpopular that was and led to my exile from Portland and the Portland culture was my lack of support. That's what I believe. Also, I was critical of the anti-FOB, lock the street type of tactics. So instead of that winning me points online with my criticism of that behavior in the black bloc 7 years ago, it only got me marginalized as someone that might be a cop to those Portland anti-FA hardcore leftist types or a federal agent. Whereas one angry Black Nation of Islam guy called me a mark, which is another term for a highly undesirable person. A mark. I thought he was another person calling me a fad. So facing persecution is important to be able to overcome that. So it's torn at me for years that no member of my father's family has ever said, kudos, Alex, for at least saying some of the things that you've said. You got to be a warrior to stay motivated to speak truth on YouTube because you're going to find your social life evaporate to nothing. And you may find yourself rejected by jobs. Even if you're willing to do dishwash work or really nasty things, you can move somewhere off the grid, speak your truth. Someone could Google you or discriminate against your address, if not your name. But ultimately, if you're on YouTube and you're known to be an online personality and a YouTuber or employer has come across that, because I do use my actual name. Alex Ansary isn't a stage name. It's the same name that goes on the application. And so being that that's the case, Alex Ansary, the YouTube channel being my identity, somebody's going to have to be motivated to work that much harder to get a job. So I'm getting really motivated about May. After my friend leaves, we're going to come and work on content and some web stuff, and it'll be her second visit. My core volunteer who helps out with the website and other friends and has also been a best friend. The one person I'm able to talk to about things that I can't talk about here, and I don't have family to talk about normal family things or a mother or a father that are there for me on a way where they want to hear from me and what's going on with me and how I'm feeling. That's not something either my mother or my father want anything to do with. So to have that one single person, and we and her go back and forth in text and talk about reality. And then we'll talk about levels of awareness that we're at that none of our friends are at, or the patrons in her library, or for me, any of my audience members, or people that I know that are in contact with me. The other thing is, if you're talking about paranormal subjects, those paranormal entities may attack your audience. And so, if you're a speaker on YouTube, there could be someone that's supportive for a while, and then you start speaking another level of truth, or open up your heart a little bit more, and it could be sharing a concern or something that you would only share with friends or family, not the general public. And they could pull out an energetic knife like someone did the other day when they were pretending to be a supporter and came in the Patreon group and then just blew up by what? Being angry at something that I've been talking about for a number of years, the demonization of people that are actually not involved in terrorism as a result of these fear-mongering events. That's a takeover of consciousness. So there are people that are assigned to us. It's very different than gang stalking. A lot of the people that get involved in believing in gang stalking end up really ill in the end. They don't realize that it's spiritually based most of the time. There aren't government workers. You're not in the Truman Show. There aren't 50 people behind you that are being paid checks by the government just to walk around and talk into their watches like Dick Tracy. If anything, someone is tapping into a spiritual attack that could be using human beings to do those very things. But it's not an intelligence agency per se, paying those people paychecks. It's people like in the movie The Matrix, going into Agent Smith mode, to where a certain amount of the people in the population are there to go after those that are activating. So there'll be a certain amount of people, for example, on a YouTube channel that are just sitting there assigned as if the dark fallen ones are using those human beings to observe reality and study some of us that are extraordinarily sensing and interpreting and perceiving this reality. And so that is one of the ways in which we are watched, in which they throw opposition. There is a deeper level and nature to the quote-unquote troll, and what motivates those to obsess on us on a lifetime, rather than the ones that are actually doing the harm to millions of people or robbing them of their country. So we are in the day and the age of the collective possession and psychosis. And instead of us being on the tail end of this, we're still building. These things tend to come in waves and cycles that are in line with the solar cycle. So as we move into 2020, 2022, 2025, in and around 2022, especially after we witnessed the deep solar minimum, you're going to see less of this psychotic, sociopathic, finger-pointing behavior and just a general blindness to what the truth is. There's a war right now for consciousness, just within the overall planetary scheme and situation. There is a massive war and battle that is taking place within human consciousness. Seems like I'm getting pretty close to some larger houses and developments. So I'm going to start walking back in just a little bit. So a person motivated to speak truth on YouTube has to be a spiritual warrior. You can't plagiarize someone else's information, even if you agree with some of their points. It has to be your own truth. The motivation has to be there. You need to understand people are going to attack you and perhaps even stalk you if you are on the path of speaking the truth. And unfortunately, the more I study human history, the more I study what happened to the Gnostics and their persecution and their murders, it seems that mankind is a non-stop cycle of killing people that are activating and speaking truth. We are in a non-stop bloody cycle of people being targeted by others that will even disguise themselves as their friends. And some people that may come as their friends and initial supporters will flip and change, right, during certain periods in which those people are more prone to possession. And it may be in relativity to that other person that they're assigned to activating to a new level of truth. So, people find themselves false flagged because this is the society of the false flag, where someone will perhaps accuse the other person of being what they are. And see, we're seeing this a lot more through social media. Social media through the emoji emotions. Laughing, happy, crying, like. We could see that people may dislike some people living in peace and not being harmed. We could see that people may really like or get excited or be in laughter about other people falling on the banana peel and hitting their head. This is an actual contradiction to the idea of a collective shift in consciousness of everyone becoming psychic by a certain point in time, and there being no lies, and we will just start floating. And these were actual things that people would say prior to 2012. 2012 was a big psyops for the spiritual communities. It was actually after 2012 that I came across less empathetic humans in person. It would be prior to 2012, that I would know humans of empathy, that there would be like a greater engagement between myself and audience members. So we're actually socially in the dark ages, even if you're one of the few that may enjoy this channel. Thank you for enjoying this channel. Support if you can. But on a social community level, we've never been further into the dark ages. Another thing to note is that there's very few documentaries being made by members of the alternative media at this time. When George Bush was the president, people were genuinely taking this stuff seriously, and it wasn't a game, and YouTube wasn't even monetized yet. People were working harder because 9/11 was like, oh my God, New World Order, 9/11, police state, and because things didn't happen in the timeline that they were expecting, people have found the time and energy to fall on their laurels, if you will, to fall into the trap of trolling, or their YouTube channel just simply being about other people, or their YouTube channel, for some people, they're not even truthers. They're running around. And I enjoyed the video of the guy doing the drive-through pranking with the different characters from the WWE. And really good impersonations of the Macho Man. Really good impersonations of Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Ultimate Warrior, and other characters, including Mrs. Doubtfire, played by Robin Williams. And see, and I like that. Sometimes, to stay motivated to speak the truth, you need to step back from other videos of other people purporting to tell the truth. And I watch very few videos. And I never reach out anymore to others in the alternative media. Because of the lack of response year after year after year, especially recently. And it's like, what has changed about me? Well, I've gone off grid, but I've gotten even more brutally honest. I've never been in the left-right paradigm. Alex hasn't changed. He's just gotten deeper into describing some of his ideas and now expanding to putting them into writing. So have I changed, or has the world changed? So there's going to be certain periods in which it's nice out, in which it's sunny. And there's going to be certain periods in which it's raining, in which we might need to go inside. And so there's going to be periods in which it's going to be perceivably more positive to the truther, maybe even more lucrative. Maybe they might even be a job at some point relating to something that I do. Right now isn't one of those times. There isn't a community, there isn't a group, not a church, not a political party, no special interest that might associate itself with being willing to publicly say, I support a guy like Alex Ansary. So for a guy like me to be motivated about speaking the truth on YouTube, it's about having that personal discipline, but also, walk over here a little bit, finding ways to create happiness in our lives and vacations in our lives that may not be like wrapped around conspiratorial ideas. For me, it was really necessary, A, to get away from people, and now that I'm in my, it's going to be the 2-year anniversary coming up on the land in June. Now it's like, how do I become happier traveling around the nation? Covering my truth and speaking my truth from different places, meeting different people. As dark as the world continues to get, using something as simple as fear to motivate someone. There's a lot of people, again, that want to accuse others of being what they are, and to overlook someone's spiritual ideas and teachings because they don't believe in them, only to call them a fearmonger the next week and completely forget that video that told them about believing in themselves, that told them about prayer to the Creator. So for those very few of you that are of that higher consciousness, that have sought actual friendship, that are not in the left-right paradigm, if you're more than just a YouTube viewer, you know, I really appreciate those that are contemplating what you can do to help at this time. And when I see that type of help or willingness to be a fellow human, and not just a content viewer, but to be an actual human who's watching another human, and to maybe be willing to do something to help that human, whether it be a job offer or sending the videos to somebody else, and realizing that I mean what I say. When I say I truly appreciate that, when people show genuine concern for the well-being of the YouTuber that's bringing you information. Because people like me are easy targets in today's day and age. I've lived through the era where I'm a right-wing extremist, untouchable to the Obama crowd, only to be called a libtard, while living, ironically, not in a liberal county, but in a county that's like 90% support of Trump. And so it's like, no matter how many years I've done this, the support that I really need, the community that I really need, seems as out of reach as it's ever been. So, for me to remain motivated on YouTube, it requires a very disciplined mindset and a type of ingenuity that knows how to go out, change things up, have fun, meet new people. You know, to know that the truth isn't necessarily about conspiratorial content. It's about truth. It's about someone's truth, expressing that truth, learning to be a philosopher, a poet, putting those things down on writing, right? Sharing those things on writing with others. What's possible. Part of my off-grid journey is what's possible outside the grid and outside the reality of working every day. It's a combination of both A, living off-grid, but B, making just enough to make the land payments, and C, adapting to a way of life to where I don't need to bring in $1,000 a month. I don't need to have, quote-unquote, sexual releases from the modern women of today's day and age, or their approval. They can go ahead and keep a very polite, safe distance from the comfort of their laptop screen. I'm no longer bowing down to the expectations of others. And see, because I came in this world rejected first by my parents, never told a single thing positive by either my mother or my father about any of my YouTube videos, it's forged a powerful spirit within me that knows that I'm doing this for future generations, not for my ego or my body to be pleased. Sure, there's a part of me that would love to be out there with some of you that are of the more higher consciousness sort, fishing at a beach, doing a show, doing a conference, playing flutes and guitars together, doing kumbaya, you know, whatever. I think about that every single day, what it would feel like to be with a small group of friends right over there where we're not arguing with each other, we're literally embraced in a higher consciousness field. And so I put it in the hands of the Creator to unite me with those people, even if they're not audience members, so that I may accidentally walk into their circle or they into mine. But it's also important for people to understand that are judgmental of others that they think aren't pulling off the law of attraction as good as them. You're going to face opposition if you're speaking the truth in a way that others that are just seeking a really good yoga pose and a tofu lunch, if they're not out there, right, challenging the world of the archons, they're not going to deal with the opposition that we are. They're going to be receiving pleasure. But this world and evolving beyond this matrix is more than just a hot yoga pose and a good organic meal and a good sleep. It's more than just you having a strong, powerful orgasm or libido. We're going, yay, I feel good about myself. Sarah looks like a hottie. There's so much more to life than just your little yoga mat and studio apartment in the city. This goes for you gentlemen as well. Your little video game consoles, whatever the hell is going on in your living environment, your cities. So yeah, those are some thoughts from me to you. It takes extreme dedication to this way of life to continue to deal with the setbacks of isolation, limited income, limited support, to continue to stay motivated to speak the truth on YouTube without going in the easy direction of just telling you what you want to hear, or heaven forbid, playing video games. Hell, if I did that, I'd have 500,000 subscribers.